Relativity is a web-based platform. It runs over the HTTPS protocol with a 128-bit secure sockets layer. This is the same encryption that banks and financial institutions use to host personal data online. A few other quick notes about security. Relativity requires strong passwords. That includes mixed case, letters, numbers, and symbols. Also, with the content being viewed on the native file viewer or the TIFF image viewer, everything is streamed directly from the server to the memory on the local machine. Nothing is written to the temporary internet cache directory or to the hard drive. We can also really lock down the system by blocking reviewers by IP address. So if you have a bunch of contract attorneys who should only be able to access Relativity on site, you also have a bunch of partners who you want to be able to access Relativity from anywhere with an internet connection, we can provide that level of security. Finally, Relativity provides two-factor authentication. If you have an enterprise installation of Relativity, it even integrates with Active Directory to provide single sign-on. Now I'm going to log into Relativity as a power user with a lot of bells and whistles turned on. I'm demoing a lot of end-user functionality at first, such as viewing native files, coding, redacting, tagging, plus some browsing and searching as well. At the close of the demo, I'll log back in as a more basic reviewer, show you exactly how Relativity can really slim down to meet the needs of a contract or basic return. So first I log in as reviewer 1. And when I log into Relativity, I'm presented with a list of workspaces that the user has access to. The security model in Relativity is highly granular. So we can grant and deny rights to users and groups from anything as large as a case and all the documents within it to something as small as an individual document, piece of coding data or metadata about that document, annotation layers, or redactions on the document, or even features of the application. There's no administrative or end user interface in Relativity. It's one seamless application, and we simply grant or deny permissions to our users based on what they need to do to be efficient in the system and do their jobs. This gives firms the ability to control their own destiny with respect to administrative features. For instance, if you have the ability to add new coding forms or new options to coding forms, you can run productions within Relativity, even if you're using Relativity through a hosted instance, which gives you the same level of control that you traditionally would have only had through an in-house installation. So I'm going to log into the Salt versus Pepper demo case. Relativity employs a tab-based metaphor for organizing different sections of the applications, and by default, I'm bounced into the Documents tab, where the bulk of the review will occur. If I have access to more administrative features or the Relativity production suite, for example, there would be more tabs across the top here. When I don't have these permissions, the options are not even grayed out. Instead, we simply remove the options entirely so that the user is not aware that they exist. And this is a persistent idea within Relativity. We find that we can have new reviewers up and running in productive in Relativity in as little as 10 to 15 minutes of training by presenting them only with the options that they need to be efficient and to do their jobs. On the main screen, there's a lot of functionality that I'm going to skip over for now while I drill right into a document. This is the core reviewer interface in Relativity. Note that I can jump back to the document list at any time by clicking up here at the top. In the top right here, I have some options for configuring my display. Here, I can put the document list at the top, or I can undock this record for multi-monitor review, or I can switch my coding pane from left to right. In the upper left-hand corner, I get an indication of what type of file I'm viewing. In this case, it's AS01. You'll notice that the file icon gives you a visual indication of the type of record being displayed below in my native file viewer. Here we have an envelope, so we know that it's an email. You'll notice that my cursor changes from an arrow to a hand when I hover over the icon. This tells me that I have the ability to download a copy of this file locally, but only if I've been granted that right. In fact, depending on the security requirements of the case or user, we can really lock down the system. You can prevent users from downloading a file, printing a document locally, copying text from the viewer, or even running a print screen. So if you have a security-sensitive client that doesn't want any information to escape the contract reviewer's workstation, we can absolutely provide that level of security. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see an envelope that's a collaboration tool. I'm able to email a hyperlink of this record to another member of the review team. If we were to click on the envelope icon, it would fire up Outlook on my machine, the URL in the body, and the control number in the subject line. When another member of my review team clicks on that hyperlink, it would be able to authenticate with Relativity, and assuming they have rights to Relativity itself, the case, and the document, they would be bounced right into the core reviewer interface into the document in question. If they didn't have all the necessary permissions, the link would be no good to them. There's also a series of radio buttons above the document that store different versions of the document in Relativity. Right now we're looking at the record in the native file viewer. Come back to that in a minute. You can also look at this document. It's an original native application in the image or as a TIFF image of the document, and that's whether we're doing some TIFFing on the fly inside of Relativity, if it's a paper-based collection that's been scanned and coded ahead of time, or if it's a smaller electronic collection that made sense to go to TIFF before review. It can view the extracted text associated with the record. And lastly, every time this document is produced, it stores a copy right alongside the original for quick, easy reference. I'll come back to a little bit more about that later in the demo as well. For now, let's go back to the native file viewer. Kcura licensed a technology from Oracle Stellent called Outside In. It's the same technology you may be familiar with from a program called QuickView Plus. It allows us to get a high-fidelity static rendering of the image on the fly without the need to convert to TIFF, PDF, or HTML behind the scenes. So we can give users the speed and control that they're used to in a TIFF-based review without the additional time and cost normally associated with those conversions. Because we have licensed the technology and really integrated it with the platform, Relativity lets users interact with native files in richer ways than would be able to in other systems that convert to low-resolution TIFF or HTML behind the scenes. For example, you can copy text out of the viewer and submit it to a search engine, or you can use Relativity Analytics, which is a set of concept search, categorization, and clustering features right within the application. And you can also note that the terms relativity and document are already highlighted for us. This is a concept referred to as persistent highlighting. What this allows me to do is at any point within the review process, feed Relativity a list of terms, maybe it's a list of potentially privileged words or key players in the case, and have them keyed out to the reviewers regardless of whether or not they're user-generated search criteria. These can also be color-coded for contextual recognition. Maybe magenta here is privilege, and green displays a key player. Here, to the left, is a persistent highlight tree. This allows users to control which hits they want to see on a term, or set level and provide instant contextual recognition as to where the hits are contained within the record and the frequency of those hits. These are completely securable from user to user and from group to group. Now I'm going to shuffle through a few documents so you can see, get a feel for how they are all rendering in the native file viewer. This next document we have is an Excel spreadsheet. Notice that I still maintain some control over the document. I can resize my columns, I still get my persistent highlighting, and I can use these blue arrows to go from hit to hit. So if I were doing a keyword search and it returns a hit 12,000 rows into the Excel file, I can use these blue arrows to jump straight to my hit and have it keyed out for me instead of waiting through that entire Excel nightmare. If we go on to the next document, we have a PowerPoint presentation. See that I still have my persistent highlighting, and I can use the blue arrows to jump from hit to hit throughout the document and see where the different hits occur. Next, we have a Word document that's in Korean. Notice that I still have my persistent highlighting, and I can use persistent highlighting, and Relativity is fully Unicode compliant. So we can search, display foreign languages, double bit languages, and CJK characters. You can also get persistent highlighting, tagging, and coding, and you can copy foreign words out of the viewer, paste them, and submit them to a search engine, and even TIFF them. All the same functionality that we get with English language documents is available for foreign language documents in Relativity. One of the pain points of a native file viewer is that these files often contain embedded content. Because the native file viewer only shows you the finalized version of documents, it's not always clear to the reviewer that the embedded content exists. In Relativity, we actually configure the system to throw an alert to the reviewers to let them know that this type of data is present. So here we have an alert that says this document contains track changes and comments. Please view the image for this record to see the hidden content. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to flip over to the image. As you can see, we're already able to TIFF this document on the fly with the track changes and comments included, and I can make the coding decision from there. Are there any questions about the native file viewer before we're looking at redactions and annotations? Let's say I'm doing a native file review and I need to redact this document. The menu bar contains all of my redaction and highlighting options. In addition to standard yellow highlights, we also have an array of colors here on this color palette. Let's say I choose a blue highlight. So we can highlight this in blue. If I decide that I want to make a redaction on the document, we have several options to choose from, and I'll go through each in this document. Put a black redaction just across the page, and you can see that there's still transparency behind it while we apply the redaction. You can add a text redaction, and there are a series of previously configured terms that you can set up for the reviewers, Unicode on that redaction label as well, or you can click Edit and change it to be whatever you want it to be. If you decide that the font is too big or too small, you can change it. Also, down at the bottom, if I decide that I want to redact off this address, but I don't want that redaction to show up in the production, I can use a white borderless redaction, and it's also easy to make adjustments on the location on one or all of the redactions at one time, so you can move things around either all together or just by themselves. Now if we jump a couple of pages, I can make an inverse redaction. And let's say I want to redact everything on this page except for this top paragraph. And then maybe I'll jump to the last page and decide that I want to redact off the entire page. But I decide that eventually I'm going to want to print this document and I want to save on printer toner, so I decide to use the cross out feature. And then on second thought, I would like to redact multiple pages. So I decide that I want to redact pages 2 and 4 in their entirety, and I can go back and see that the redaction on page 2 is just the way that I wanted. I can also delete one at a time or do a mass deletion of redactions. Maybe I made a mistake on a full page redaction, so I could easily remove them from here. Lastly, I can toggle the overlays to be transparent, so I can do QC before production, or we can hide them all together. In the lower left-hand corner, you'll notice that there's a drop-down that says Attorney. Now, if I flip it over to Expert, you'll notice that I have a clean version of this document. This is a concept in relativity known as markup sets. It allows us to create securable subsets of documents. Our clients are using these subsets in a few different ways. The first is like the example I'm showing you here. Say you have attorneys on documents redacting and doing work. You also have experts coming in, but you don't want them to actually see or interfere with the attorney work product, or you don't want to see or interfere with each other's work product. Markup sets are completely securable, and we can set them up so that when the expert comes in, they'll be totally locked down. They won't even see this bar at the bottom, so that they don't even know the functionality exists. And it's a simple and effective way to build and maintain ethical walls in the system. In IP litigation, which is often multi-jurisdictional, the document may go out in a variety of different ways for different jurisdictions. We can manage this process through different markup sets. So instead of attorney and expert, our markup sets may say jurisdiction A, jurisdiction B, jurisdiction C, etc. And there's also no limit on the number of markup sets you can have. Then when we go to produce our records in relativity, we'll just pick which markup sets we want to produce from. We also have this markup navigation pane that allows us to jump from annotation to annotation. The markup navigation feature quickly allows you to show which type of markup, text box, indication, or which markup sets the annotations reside in, and as well as the page number. Does anybody have any questions about markups or redactions?